Greetings. Ever been discussing an anime on a forum or something and then offhandedly mention you watch the dub version and suddenly you get flamed left, right, and center for it? Because if you're an avid dub watcher like I am, then I'm sure you have. But why? Why are dubs so prominently shunned? Well, let's start with the obvious. It sounds different, therefore it's automatically bad. I feel this complaint is often cavilled by younger audiences, or purists who won't stand for their favorite piece of media changing because it's perfect the way it is, and literally any alteration to that would sour their tastes. But hey, I'll be the first to admit it, sometimes beating the original cast is just an impossible task. In many instances, it seems like the original voice actor was born to fill the role they portray. Let's take Luffy. If you are a fan of One Piece, you'll most likely have heard the complaints of Colleen Clinkenbeard's performance as the Straw Hat Pirates captain. Here's the thing though, I'm certain no matter which English VA was casted for Luffy, the whining would continue to arise over and over again. Mayumi Tanaka is just too iconic. I'm not gonna lie, I honestly love Colleen's Luffy, but I'll be the first to admit, Mayumi Tanaka is quite literally the perfect role for Luffy. Now let me talk about Funimation, because I know some anti-dub viewers are screaming at the screen waiting for me to discuss this controversial company. But if we're simply talking about their work localizing anime, then I'm gonna be honest, I don't mind most of their stuff. I think it's honestly quite good. Now, hold on, don't bring out the stakes and torches yet. I have definitely not forgotten about the Dragon Maid scene. If you haven't seen it, this is the original.
何ですかその格好。いつも言われるから露出度を抑えたんだ。どうかな。次は体を変えるといいですよ。
Quite harmless, nothing really to note. And here is the dubbed version.
What are you wearing that for?
Oh, those pesky patriarchal societal demands were getting on my nerves, so I changed clothes.
Give it a week, they'll be begging you to change back.
No. That is definitely jarring. This feels more like a shitty fan abridge than an official dub. But here we are. This is definitely the most egregious example of a dub altering lines to fit the localizer's political agenda, but also it's one of the only ones I could find. The good part is the rest of the dub isn't nearly as awful. There's still some interesting changes, such as when Toru propositions Kobayashi. Kobayashi's sub-response is, "But I'm a girl." In the dub, it became, "I'm not into girls." The dubbed line seems to explicitly define Kobayashi as heterosexual, whereas the original line could be ambiguous. Simple, small changes like this could be the determining factor on whether some people will watch it or not, and that is completely fine. We're not finished with you yet. We still have that prison school scene. Roll it.
Have you got a stick up your ass? Or are you one of those dumbass Gamergate creep shows?
Oh, they use Gamergate. No. Dubs should be striving for accessibility, not randomly shoving archaic references hardly anyone is going to understand. It just leaves you scratching your head, forcing you to Google it to even understand what the hell they just said, if anything. After hearing those two examples, you're probably wondering, what the hell is Kevin thinking? How does he think that Funimation still has fine dubs? Well, that's because those appalling alterations are few and far between. But guess which ones get plastered over the trending page on Twitter? Yeah, the bad eggs. I have said this before, and I'll say it again. Localization, and by extension, translation and voice acting and dubbing, is an art. It's never as easy as transcripting the episode into Google Translate and bada boom bada bing. There you go. You've got your translated episode. There are several aspects of this art form to account for. One of those being the difficulty of matching up lip flaps so the scenes can flow seamlessly without feeling robotic, disjointed, or unnatural. Sometimes the localization team is able to catch a lucky break and have a scene where the character is talking but they aren't on screen, so some leeway is granted in that aspect. With higher level productions though, these chances are almost non-existent and it becomes increasingly more difficult the better the character acting is in a scene. I can't imagine how painstaking it is to match every syllable in a Studio Ghibli movie. Is it Ghibli or Ghibli? I think Ghibli, but Ghibli sounds more right in my head. I don't know. There are going to be differences in translation no matter which way you slice it. Sometimes translators are forced to change a joke completely and remake it from scratch for it to make sense to us. Ever wondered why Gintama's first seasons or Monogatari in its entirety never received a dub? They're plenty popular enough, but my god, I don't even want to think about the hell it would be to even attempt to adapt the insurmountable Japanese culture references, wordplay, and puns in those shows that would make zero sense to an English viewer. Sometimes there are phrases and words that we just don't have an equivalent for in English, breeding further roadblocks for our localization friends to overcome. For example, let's take the Japanese word senpai, which roughly translates to an upperclassman or the senior member of a group in Japanese arts. Now, the way it's used in anime, and I'm assuming in real-life Japan as well, is as an honorific. But here in North America, we don't go around saying to our upperclassmen, "Hey, upperclassmen, can I get some help on this homework?" No, we just use their names. A way lots of older dubs handled this is to straight up use the word senpai in the official versions, making them sound like fan projects more than anything.
How are you doing? Are you having a good time?
Tamaki-senpai.
The flower viewing reception is going over quite well.
Which admittedly is charming in its own right, but it still definitely doesn't feel natural and is quite jarring. So many studios have adapted to just using their names, like in My Senpai's Annoying.
武田先輩の奥さんとかありえないから。I mean, in no universe do I want to be Takeda's wife.
If we're speaking only modern anime, then a prominent outlier would have to go to Nagatoro, which keeps the senpai in both English and Japanese.
Hey, Senpai. I'm sorry for calling you creepy earlier. Do you forgive me?
I mean, they kinda have to given the context of the show, but it's still very odd hearing the word in English. Speaking of new dubs, a large portion of them are actually fantastic. Not the opposites, as many people would like to believe. I feel like this misconception has mainly arisen because, as I iterated before, the speed at which the very few terrible lines in particular dubs often spread on social media is akin to a wildfire. And for good reason, keep that political bullshit out of our dubs. Another reason dubs are most likely looked down upon is because localization in the 90s and early 2000s could be considered a Wild West. You had gems such as the legendary Ghost Stories dub.
I'm sorry to call you at this hour. Can I speak to Tomomi?
Tomomi? Ain't no Tomomi girl living here, so what?
Get your crackhead ass into some rehab. I ain't got time for this bullshit.
Coming into being at the same time, 4Kids had a monopoly on Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh!, and even One Piece. Leading into the rap.
His name's Olo, he's just like a samurai and a Lady. Nami's not shy. Usopp's doing that marksman thing. Sanji's cooking, Chopper's doctoring.
Sanji with an accent that I can only describe as a heavily congested Brooklyn man.
I love a girl who treats me like dirt. Hey, gorgeous, you remember me, right?
And who can forget Helmeppo's hammer gun?
One more punch and say goodbye to your friend! I'll pummel his head flatter than the shape of the earth!
Also, I guess that means Helmeppo's a flat earther. Okay. My point is, localization and translation, as well as voice acting as whole art forms, have significantly evolved since the 90s and early 2000s. Nowadays, we have killer dubs like Kaguya's, which handles itself brilliantly and is a perfect example of a comedy release for Westerners done right.
Your rhythm straight trash and you totally suck. And while you're crying to your mama, tell her I don't give a f.
Then there's ReZero with an all-around perfect cast. Here's a clip of Kyle McCarley channeling his inner sass to perfectly embody Regulus Corneus.
Now listen here. Who taught you that it was acceptable behavior to swing a sword at someone while they're speaking? I do believe that's a violation of my right to freely express myself.
Listen, I'm not saying modern dubs are perfect by any means, though. I mean, I did just use the word perfect, but there are certain things that irk me about modern dubs. For instance, I recently just finished watching Adachi and Shimamura in dub, and the way they pronounce this woman's name, Nagafuji, at least that's what you think they pronounce Nagafuji, right? Here's the pronunciation in episode 1.
Honestly, my
other classmate, Nagafuji, is your typical glasses chick.
That sounded right? That sounded exactly how I said it. That's how you would think Nagafuji should be pronounced. But then if you skip to episode 5 and pretty much any other time in the show when they pronounce this person's name, they say this.
So anyway, I was thinking we could hang at Nagafuji's today.
Nagafuji? Nagafuji? What? What? What are you doing? You had it right in episode 1. You had it down. Now you're Nagafuji. What do you mean Nagafuji? Just Nagafuji. What the hell? Whatever. It's like when people pronounce Naruto's name as Naruto. Like what? No, you can't do that. Anyway, another grating side effect of watching dubs is realizing how goofy the original is, with certain dialogue that may seem fine in your head when you're reading the subtitles, but hearing them out loud lets you hear their sometimes cringy auditory quirks a lot easier. Or when there's scenes of characters speaking different languages, which often led to me bursting out laughing during Vinland Saga, when I'm sure I wasn't supposed to be in that scene. That scene being where Thorfinn is supposed to be talking Old Norse and the woman is supposed to be speaking English, and then Thorfinn just says, he just says this.
But the year before last, he came down with a nasty chill and passed on.
I don't understand anything that you're saying to me. I don't speak your language.
It's so stupid. It's so stupid. But there's also a scene where the dude who is supposed to be translating for his commander is just translating his accent.
What's that mean?
What's that mean?
Are you saying no?
Are you saying no?
If so, Ashalad and his men will join the enemy.
His men will join the enemy.
Oh my god. Okay. If you the Vinland Saga dub, don't get me wrong, the Vinland Saga dub is amazing. It is literally one of the greatest dubs I've ever listened to. But it's so goofy in the aspect that it just changes the accents of the characters when they're supposed to be speaking a different language. It's so dumb, but it's charming. Anyway, in the end, the whole dub versus sub debates can be summarized in one word. Preference. Do you think the original voice actors are irreplaceable? Do you care that you may, and we're talking a tiny %, receive some localizer pushing their political agenda? Do you care that not every line is a direct translation of the original? Do you care that you'll most likely be made aware of some goofy aspects of your favorite show? If so, then yeah, you should definitely steer clear of any dubs. But if not, then if you're ever on the brink of considering watching a dub or a sub for a show next time you're thinking of watching something new, go for the dub. I recommend it. I personally find it far easier to connect with characters when they're speaking my native tongue. Aside from all of that, you can't really deny the accessibility dubs offer. They grant the visually impaired and the blind a way to enjoy this whole medium, which I think is super cool. Anyway, y'all, that's the video. Dislike it if you disliked it. Like it if you liked it. I'm Kazu Trash, and I'll see you later. Peace.